Awesome.
All
Okay,
right,
are we
then we
ready
should
to get
take it
this
away.
panel started?
And it's 6 o'clock.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. I can't see anybody except the panelists, so I don't know how many of you out there in Facebook land are actually here. Hopefully 5 gazillion of you, or maybe more. Want to have everybody do a really fast introduction, just kind of who you are and your name, hello, that kind of thing. And Natanya, you want to start? Because you're like right there on the screen right there.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I am Natanya Barron. I am a writer, mostly write fantasy, mostly with monsters or women in beautiful dresses or a combination of both of them. I like witty, dry humor and action adventure. And my most recent publication was the combination of 3 of my novellas called Masks. Oh, sorry, no, it was called These Marvelous Beasts, which was Masks of Malevolence was one of them. All the alliteration is getting me this evening. But you can find me at natanyabarron.com pretty much on any platform out there. So relatively unique name, but I will be here for the duration of this. We're all a little punch drunk already. Woo!
Just a little. Lex?
Hi, I'm Alexandra Christian, and I write paranormal and contemporary romance. Sometimes dabble a little bit in horror, and that's about it.
Okay. Lucy?
I'm Lucy Blue. I've been writing romance since the dawn of time. I wrote up Adam and Eve's first date. No, it just feels that way. I've been publishing romance since about 2000. I write romance now for Falstaff Crush. My latest book is coming out this month. It is the second in a series of light romantic mysteries about a silent movie actress named Stella Hart. The new one coming out is The Passion of Miss Cuthbert. And I'm also the consulting, directing something. I'm the cheese over Falstaff Crush, which is the romance line at Falstaff Books. Melissa, what's the title?
I editorial director for Falstaff Crush.
Editorial director for Falstaff Crush now.
Yep, and John will tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Joelle?
Hi, everybody. My name's Joelle. I write as J.D. Blackrose, and I write, my most current thing is the Zombie Cosmetologist novella series. The first one came out in March called Flocket Cover, and the second one, Hide and Chic, is coming out June 11th. I've also written the Monster Hunter Mom series, which takes place in John Hartness's Bubba the Monster Hunter world, universe, and Jess Friedman is a Jewish monster hunter who has 3 kids, and so she fights for the monsters for the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And I've also written the Soul Wars, which is sort of like True Blood with Valkyries. So if you ever was watching True Blood, you thought, this is awesome, this is great, if only it had a Valkyrie and a flying horse, that one's for you. And you can find me at slipperywords.com.
Theresa?
Hi, I'm Theresa Glover. I'm the author of the Caitlin Kelly Monster Hunter series, which also takes place in John Hartness's Bubba the Monster Hunter universe. She just really wanted to take a vacation in New Orleans, and as soon as she landed, work called. I have the first 2 out now. The third one should be coming out sometime this year, and I'm also an editor at Falstaff Books.
Awesome. Okay. I'm Melissa MacArthur, and I'm the associate publisher at Falstaff and the kitten herder for this wonderful panel. So we're going to be talking about story Bibles, sometimes also called world Bibles, character Bibles, piles of notes haphazardly across the desk. I want to kind of start with what that is. So does anybody want to tell us kind of what a story Bible or world Bible is?
I can do that.
Okay.
It is a series of notes that you keep by whatever means works for you, where you keep up with who all the people in your series are. If you're writing a series of books, you have to have one. There's no question, because it's who are your characters, what are their names, what do they look like? I mean, if you have some physical feature, you need to keep up with that, because by book 17 you will have forgotten that in book 3 you spoke something about their muddy brown eyes or whatever, but your world Bible hopefully will not. And basically you put it in whatever format where you can get at that information quickly.
Okay. Is that any
To add on
different?
to that, I would have said that, you know, the World Bible is my external memory because I won't remember anything I've written. I've only got 3 books in this series and I've had to look stuff up.
Right. I think it's really important for people to remember if you're planning on writing a series, this is essential. You might think you won't forget, but there are often months or even sometimes years between book 1, book 2, book 3, whatever. And you might have written 10 other things in between. So you will forget. You will not remember. And you have to keep it updated between each book so that you do remember, because something might happen in book 2. Let's say your character suffers an injury and now they have a scar running down one side of their face. So you have to update it to remember that. So in book 3, they still have that scar. Or if they've suffered an injury that gives them a limp, that they have a limp in the next book. Otherwise, you will completely forget. And the key is you might not care. You might be like, oh, well, that's a small thing. But your readers, if you have devoted readers, they will care and they will call you on it. They will remember.
Every time.
So, I mean, and you're lucky. You're lucky if you have such a devoted following that they'll call you on it. That's the goal. That's the greatest thing, to have fans who will be like, no, you know, she got burned by acid in book 3, and where'd that burn go? So you really need to keep track of that stuff.
Okay, good. All right, so that's kind of what it is. A little bit about what it includes. Now, Natanya, you write about lots of different places, particularly with like your these marvelous beasts. They travel all over the place. Did you include location information in your?
I did, yeah. And part of it, I think, for me, I'm notoriously bad with consistency, depending on what books I'm working on and how detailed the word Bible is, if you can even call it that in some cases. I think what was good about writing these marvelous beasts is almost every location was someplace that I had actually been. So that does help it a lot. I know I don't quite need the depth of something if I've been there, because my brain is just very visual and I can kind of remember that, oh, in Prague, you know, the cobblestones had this pattern on them or whatever. So I think that really helps. But what is helpful is, especially in cities like Prague or London or some of these older cities, is knowing exactly where in time I am and what is there and what isn't there. And so for me, that usually consists of lots of links and, you know, internet research that I kind of bookmark and keep together, because, you know, one of the cool things about London, for instance, is that there's different layers. You know, you dig down and fun fact, underneath London is mostly limestone, which I learned because I had to dig a Roman bath into it and figure out what it would look like as you walk down. But depending on when you're there were different fires, there were different things. So things that seem permanent to us now might not have been there. In these marvelous beasts, we don't get past 1930. I did have the hardest time in Cairo, because Cairo was changing every 5 minutes in the early 20th century. Everything from hotels went up and burned down, and the way that everything was on the Nile changed. So I kind of kept it vague for that reason, or I just made up my own stuff. But yeah, definitely cities are a great way to kind of build out that kind of stuff, that kind of thing.
Good. What about when, like Lex, you have kind of a alternative London, right, in your Phoenix books?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I was sitting here going, where is she going with this?
Yeah, I don't know either.
Anyway, it's my own fault. The alcohol. Yeah, I actually have, basically what would happen is somebody who had never been to London before but had read a bunch of books about what London would be like in like the 20th century, how they would build it if they were building it on another planet. So it's kind of like London if everything was a postcard. It's like all of the all of the heat but none of the sizzle. It's kind of like they have, you know, a postcard view of London, but then of course it's like souped up to be kind of cyberpunk too. So there's, you know, this whole layer of, in one of the books, their London is a steampunky kind of London, but yeah, it's just I took things from the modern London and I just kind of, I guess, heightened them, stylized them, and because I tried to think about the things that somebody who was building London for a tourist, what they would want to be in there. Does that make sense?
That does, yeah. And you had to keep track of all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. And I'm sorry, I don't do a very good job of it. Because I wrote that book when before I kind of believed in world Bibles, not word Bibles, those are dictionaries, world Bibles. So I when I was writing like the last couple of books, I was trying to remember things that I had made up for the first one. And there's like this whole thing about how all of the cities, all the colonies on Mars are under these big bubbles. And I had written this whole thing about how they worked in the first book. And so I was doing something with them in one of the future books. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, how does that work again? So I actually had to go and reread the first book because I hadn't written it down anywhere because apparently I'm an idiot. And so, yeah.
No, I wouldn't say an idiot. Just, it was a learning experience.
Short-sighted. That's it.
There we go.
Yeah,
good.
That's a nicer way of saying it.
All right, so I think we probably have a pretty good idea of what world Bibles are. Some of the things you guys have mentioned that can go in them are things like age, physical characteristics, like hair color, eye color, specific events that happen.
Freaking name. How to spell their freaking name.
Mm-hmm.
Please, for the love of God, if you're writing a book, yes, I'm telling you, write down how to spell their freaking name.
Or give them a name that people already know how to spell, like Bob or something.
No doubt. Oh my gosh.
But then you have to be really careful if it's a kind of common name like that you don't accidentally start putting Rob.
That's true.
Tom.
That's true.
So in my third Phoenix Rising book, it's very steampunky, and so I wanted all of the people, because you go to this colony and you have to pick a Victorian name. So of course everybody's name is this weird ass Dickensian sort of name. And by the end of the book, I was like, why did I name this person this? Because I got tired of typing it over and over and over again. Naming somebody Mrs. Pennypacker, it sounds like a great idea on page 1. On page 155, it sucks.
Yeah, you could probably create like a hotkey or something to do that, and but that sounds like a lot of work.
You can actually create a dictionary entry that will autocorrect, because on my laptop I don't have a way to do the alt codes, so I have a code for an M dash. And I just type the thing in and hit enter, and the M dash pops up. So I don't have to go fish for it. I don't have to fight with the alt codes. I don't have to go back and edit. It's delightful. Look it up and how to do it.
Yeah,
it'll save your life.
That's so wonderful.
Well, I was
the grammar nerd and editor are very happy.
I was going to say, when Lex was talking and then she sort of covered it, that if you're creating stuff, if you're creating worlds really from scratch, not just doing alternate history, but you have to write all that stuff down.
Yep.
Because in a spurt of creativity, you're going to come up with something super cool, like your bubbles. And by book 7, you've totally forgotten what that was. So you have to write all of it down. And I find that trying to find images on the internet really helps me. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're never going to show anyone this stuff. It's just for you. So I use a lot of, because like Natanya, I'm very visual in the way I think. So like all my characters, I go out and find people that look like my characters, and I put those little images next to them. If I have an idea of what a scene looks like, I might even clip an image of what that scene looks like. Mm-hmm. I do all of those things so that I can look at it, and that image reminds me of what I was trying to go for, and the feel of it and the look of it. But you have to write all those down. So you're writing your characters, you're describing them, you're getting images of them, but you're also writing all the details, and you're collecting all that research for when you create that alternative world or that alternative technology. You have to keep all of it, because you're going to need to go back to it. And you don't have to show it to anyone. This is the
Right.
most important part, is this is for you.
Right.
No one ever sees it except maybe
Unless your editor asks for it.
right, except maybe your editor. So
Yeah,
it's
in
all
my
for
case,
you.
yeah, in my case, I'm writing in the 1920s. It's not alternative history at all, but it's not hard historical fiction either. I mean, it's light mystery romance. So it's kind of a mixture of, there's some real places mentioned in there, but any place like if I'm going to have a villain from somewhere, or I'm going to have some terrible thing happen somewhere, whatever, I make a place up. I have a long list of, these are the real places and these are the made up places. So, you know, I have like the Coconut Grove and the Hollywood sign and this kind of stuff over here. And then I have the Crest and Crown pub and you know, the name of the ship and that kind of stuff over here. Because if I've done a halfway decent job of making up place names, then hopefully by the time 3 books have gone by, I'm not going to remember that, oh yeah, that's not a real place. I can't look it up on Google. I made that up, so I can do whatever I want to there.
Yeah, I do something really similar. One of the series that I'm working on, the characters are real people from history. And so I have lists of things that actually happened to this person and things that I made up that happened to this person. And so that I can kind of remember, you know, which was actually which. And
oh my gosh. And just like piggybacking on that, if you are going to use the character of Dracula in anything, okay, there's like Vlad the Impaler, and then there's Dracula from Bram Stoker, and then there's Dracula from every movie you've ever seen, and none of those things match. So I was writing I have been writing this book for 1,000 years. I'll probably never finish it, but it's a book about the brides of Dracula. And so I wanted it to kind of be historical, but kind of bring in stuff from the Bram Stoker book because, well, you know, that's the Dracula that I like. And trying to discern what actually happened and what didn't actually happen that was in a movie, or, you know, either with Bela Lugosi or Gary Oldman or whatever, is mind-numbing. It's horrible. Remember that if you decide that you want to reuse Dracula in a book. It's, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Sorry, that was my little private rant there.
Well, the good news about that is anything you would want to do, it's canon somewhere. Somebody's already done it. The bad news is anything you want to do, it's canon somewhere. Somebody's already done it. So.
Right. Well, that's just it, because you don't want to violate somebody's copyright because you thought it actually happened. That would be really embarrassing.
Yeah, well, I think that's really important, especially when you're dealing with your kind. I mean, just because I love writing monsters, but kind of deciding what facets are going to be used. I mean, something as simple as a vampire, you would think that there are consistent themes, and there really aren't, other than maybe being kind of sexy time. Because I mean, every person that has written them has had exposure to different kinds of things and different kinds of approaches. So I think it's important that you figure out in your world, in my world, which is also the shared world, but I with the Shadow Council Archives. Sorry, my brain is not working today. It's in the sun too long. But I decided that vampires have really bad feet, that like their nails grow really badly and they're always trying to stuff them into funny shoes. And so like they need their own podiatrist. So that I just decided, hey, I don't think anyone's done that one yet.
Oh my God, I have to write the book about the vampire podiatrist now.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so you know, you have to. But I think for me, it's kind of light comedy. But I think it's also important in those word Bibles that you decide that is how vampires work here, or that is not something that that would be occurring to them, because it can be. People go in with a lot of assumptions. I mean, I didn't read Twilight, but I watched the movie and I was kind of amazed that they didn't have the big sharp teeth. That I was like, so they bite people like zombies.
Nobody bites anybody in Twilight. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. But it's very different from, you think that there are these commonalities, but which is why making up monsters can always be fun too. But
yeah, Natanya, speaking of writing in shared universes, with the Shadow Council, the one that you're working in is based on John Hartness's Harkerverse, and he has 2 worlds to cross over, and there came up an issue of a certain word, how we pluralized it. Do you remember what it was?
Is it Fae?
No, Lamia.
Oh, Lamia. Yes. We had to decide, some of those Latin words, which is actually the thing I was going to mention earlier, is that we were talking about how something could be so simple, but with my Lamia, she was the reason that I kept having problems twice. Once that Melissa, my wonderful editor, in like the second book said, I think her eyes are supposed to be red, but you said that they're yellow. And I was like, oh, she has magic. Her eyes can be whatever she wants, which is not exactly how things work. But I also wrote the entire last book where she loses an appendage, but then I realized she actually has 4 arms. So if she lost 1 arm when she's in a human glamour, she would have lost 2 arms. It changed the math for the rest of the book. I had to go through the second half of the book and be like, okay, so it's her side, but it's 2 arms, but she's stuck in her glamour. So it looks like 1 arm, but she's having the pain of 2 arms. It was something else. I should have written that one down.
God, I hope she never has a hysterectomy.
Yeah. I don't even know if she can have babies.
What?
I don't know if she wants.
Sorry.
Like 1,000 years old. I think she might be past her prime. And how do lamias even have? I mean, they have like eggs. I don't know. I haven't gone through all of the procreation yet.
And the next chapter,
something else for your world Bible.
Right. We're back to world Bibles, I think, really. I think that's where we were.
I mean, it did have a point, because the problem with the spelling is because in the Harkerverse it was spelled one way, and in the Bubbaverse it was spelled a different way.
Yeah.
And so,
and the word itself kind of resembles part of female anatomy. So so we were, and she is a lesbian lamia. So it had some fun conversations about that one, but we had to figure that out and then kind of make a decision. So
and now it exists in the style guide.
And who would have known that was the kind of creature that we would have to worry about plural?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have all this information. You have information about your characters, about the world, about the magic systems, about real places you make up, all of that. How do you manage all of the information? Where do you keep it written down? Where do you write it down? Do you keep it on paper, digitally? What's your system for keeping track of the information?
Well, I keep everything in Evernote because you, Melissa, introduced me to it and said, thou shalt use Evernote. And I loved Evernote because they let me use it for free for a really long time. And then eventually they said, like, you're using a lot of memory. Maybe you want to pay a little bit. And I said, totally fair. Like, you should have asked me 6 months ago. So I bought into it, and it's not that expensive, and it's really great. One of the things that I love about it, and there are a couple of things I love about it and why I will sing its praises. And I think this is some of the things that you like about it, Melissa. One of them is that I can share things with you or with somebody else if I need to. I can share a file.
And it looks really good.
Yeah. And so it's easy from that perspective. I need to share a file with somebody else. I also love the web clipping part of it. So if I'm doing research and I come across a page of information and I think, this is a great story idea, or, zombie cosmetologist, one of the characters is the ghost of Betsy Ross. And I come across some great information about Betsy Ross, and I think I need this information. I can just clip that page into the correct notebook in Evernote. And that is a fabulous little thing that Evernote can do. So I love those two things. And I also love that Evernote does work on the Save the Cat templates. And I love the Save the Cat, like 3-act template that works for me. So I just have that template saved in there. And every time I'm starting a new project, I pull that out and I work off of that. So I keep everything in there. Like I have a notebook for every project, and I keep all of my character descriptions, my 3-act template, my notes, my world description, everything in Evernote. So, and I can access it on my phone as well as my desktop. So that's what I do.
I have a template for character sheets, basically, and stuff. I can share those in the I don't know. I guess this thing has a comment section or something. I can share those when we're all done.
Yeah, that has all that stuff.
I use two different systems for keeping track of stuff. I have Evernote where I tend to put scenes that I've written out of order so I can tag them and organize them and make them very neat and pretty if I need them. I use that for the web clipping as well, but I also keep the information that I need to refer back to in Trello because I can color code these little cards that fit and then put the cards in stacks, and I can just kind of flip through and find things that I need very quickly. And I write about New Orleans and I use actual places sometimes for inspiration. So I've actually got pictures of the places that I used for inspiration as well as their location on Google Maps so that I know that when she's running around the city where I have to go to find this place. And it pops up with those images so I don't have to go digging for it again. I can literally open up Trello and go, oh, that's the place I'm looking for, click it, and then all the information is right there for me. And it allows me to put files or notes or whatever in there as well so I can manipulate it and make it useful. The problem I have is remembering to write that crap down.
Okay, I am the exact opposite. Melissa's my editor too. She showed me Evernote. I went to a wonderful seminar she did on Evernote. I understand completely why people love it. I will never use it. I would spend all of my time on Evernote. I would never write the freaking book. And I do not, this is not advice to anybody. This is just if there's somebody watching the panel now going, oh my heavens, I'm not a cyber person. I'm not. It is possible to write a book without it. Okay, you still have to keep up with stuff, and it probably is physically harder to keep up with stuff. This is my Evernote. Okay, this is.
Yeah, I have a notebook too.
Yeah, exactly. I think everybody does, but I mean, I have endless numbers of lists and tables and that kind of stuff in Word, and I keep it all in digital form. I have a flash drive that has it all on. It's all on my work computer. So I can, for all of it. And then for an individual book, I have this. It's my, you're talking about the Save the Cat beats. I use the exact same template to do my outlines to start with. I use index cards and stuff. And then make, I call it preliminary outline of incidents. And there could be 75 things that happen between this incident and that incident. But I know that I need to be headed towards this right here. So I do have all of that for pretty much the whole book. More so with the Stella Hart books because they're mysteries and I have to know who done it and how they done it and how they hit it and how we're going to catch them. So it's more important to outline. I outline more carefully for these than I would just a regular romance. But I'll tell you, Melissa should realize how much I trust her as an editor. Because the thing you were talking about, Joelle, about one of the things you like about Evernote is that you can share it with somebody. That's why I psychologically loathe it.
Okay. You don't want anyone to see it.
Right. I don't want anybody to ever see it. It's that thing you were talking about before. That's very, very important to me. These are my notes.
Yeah, sure. You don't have to share anything.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
But just knowing that it's somewhere in cyberspace sitting there. Now, who the hell would ever care to look it up that wasn't directly involved? But you know, knowing that it's sitting there, that really bothers me. And you know, I have a really pretentious justification for it, talking about when I was in grad school and we have, as an English lit major, and you have these people that their entire career as lit crit people is digging up the shopping list and finding the notes. Oh, well, really, Jane Austen meant to say in Pride and Prejudice in chapter 14, so and so. And I have a horror of that. You know, so like,
that's so funny.
No, that's absolute baloney. I just don't like it. It's my stuff. Don't look at it.
Earlier, and I totally understand that.
Ago, I showed our lovely Melissa my outline Bible for my current book. I've never done that for anybody before. So Melissa, that's how much I love you. That's how much I trust you. I showed you. But I'm not telling anybody not to use Trello. I'm not telling anybody not to use Evernote. I'm just saying it is possible to do it without it. Now, it means you have to lug this whole big thing around with you when you go to write at Starbucks or whatever, and that's not convenient. I don't do
We're never going
any
there
kind
again.
of writing on my phone. I don't keep any kind of notes on my phone or anything like that. I'm an old person. I freely admit that's a big part of this. I'm an old person. But for other old people, it is possible to write a book and never learn how to use any of this stuff. But it's
And that's
probably
really why I picked, because I picked everybody that's on the panel, and I picked a variety of people. I've edited for all of you, and I know everybody approaches it a little bit differently. So I was thinking that's probably going to be a good thing. That way people can get lots of different options.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a total chaos monster, and it totally depends on what thing I'm writing and if it's a first or secondary world. It's the one thing they all have in common. I do have Pinterest boards for every single one of my books. Again, with the visual stuff, for me, Pinterest is just where I go. There's so many phenomenal character design artists out there, and I just if I need the way a certain dress looks, I wrote a book that took place in 1912, and it was all sort of high Edwardian tea dresses, and I could find the exact dresses that they were wearing during a certain time or a China pattern and kind of conglomerating that. And I use the 7-point plot, which is similar to the Save the Cat, but this is kind of all the beats and the pinches that in your story. And for most of those, I do that, and I do it with a good old fashioned spreadsheet. It doesn't always last, and it doesn't always. The characters sometimes have minds of their own, and the plot goes in a different direction. But I found that where I used to be able to not do that, now that I'm older and have children and busy jobs and travel. Well, I used to have travel. Keeping it all in one place is really good. For secondary world stuff, I usually just use Scrivener. I've been using Scrivener, since it was first released, and it for me is just how I picture my books. So I always save different files and clippings. I'm just about finished with this big fantasy epic that I've been writing for 3 years, and it has 4 major cities, and every major city has a different color fire for a certain reason, for religion and temples. And of course, I can't remember them ever. I'm like, the crimson fire burns across, and then I look at the document. I'm like, no, it was yellow. It's yellow. It's yellow. It's yellow. It's yellow. It's not purple. It's not orange. So, but like I think Theresa said in the very beginning, it's like your external hard drive. And for things, of course, and I made it hard on myself. A lot of the names have accents and things like that because I wanted sort of a French influence. So again, making sure that things are spelled correctly is really important. And then sometimes I get really creative. So I have a murder board for this same book called Cinderglow, where I just took, it's kind of a cross between an outline and an inspiration board, and it hangs by my desk, and it's been there for about 3 years, and I can kind of move things around. And for me, it really helped me when I was the very beginning of the books. I have 6 different points of view and 3 different timelines, and kind of keeping everything very visual was super helpful for me. So no medium is off limits for me.
I tend to remember things better if I physically write them down. So sometimes I actually have notes in a notebook like Lucy, but I'm paranoid in that I'm terrified that I will lose it. And with it, the institutional memory of what I have created will be gone, and it spikes my anxiety. So I try to put it where I know I can get back to it somewhere.
Perfect sense.
Well, I know exactly why I'm on this panel, because y'all hear me? Okay. I know exactly why I'm on this panel, because I know that Melissa chose me for this panel because I'm a particular kind of weirdo, and it's all of her fault. I'm kind of a cross between everybody, because I used to be a total pantser. I never wrote anything down, as is evidenced by the first one of my sci-fi romances, and spelling people's names 15 different ways and all this other shit. So crap. We're supposed to be PG-13, sorry. Anyway.
You get 3 bad words.
What?
You can have 3 bad words.
Oh, yay! So I'm down to 2. But anyway, so then I graduated to, I would just have my Word document up where I was typing, and then I would keep notes in the little thing down the side, in the little comments pane down the side. And then I started using OneNote, and I really didn't like that too much because OneNote is very, I don't know, it's really complicated. Yeah, it's kind of complicated. I don't know. You can move stuff around, and it's okay for some things, but it just, I didn't like it. So I was just putting everything in like little, in like a little comment thing down the side. Then I started creating an outline, which was just chapter 1, this is going to happen, chapter 2, this is going to happen. And it was just a Word document. And then I had the little thing down the side that had all the characters and little things and like links and stuff like that down the side. Then Melissa decided to ruin my life because she introduced me to this horrible thing called Happy Planners. And okay, every Karen you've ever known probably has a friggin' Happy Planner in her kitchen, okay? It's like a super planner thing. They look like this. They have like these big, I don't know if anybody, I guess you can see it, but they have these big rings on the side that you can get them in like regular size or the big size like this. And then they have like different little calendar pages, and you can pull them out because they have like this funny little thing. Like, let me pull one out. I don't know if you can see it, but it has this funny little mushroom shaped thing, so you can take stuff in and out of it and put it back. And she started using those and was showing us because there's like stickers and stuff, and you get stickers, and I love stickers. Part of my second grade teacher thing coming out. So you've got like all of these little sticker things that you can use. And it's a really great procrastination tool. And she was showing me all of her different planners because she's got one for like just her household, which is terrifying. And then she has one for like all of her writing stuff, and then one that's just for fall stuff. And I mean, it's just, she's kind of out of control. We need to put her in a program. But she and I have this idea of doing one. You can buy them that don't have calendars in them, that have just like different pages that are like journals, and I guess they call them journals, but
Notes,
you know,
I think.
Yeah, and they have like notebooks and stuff. And you can buy, if you're an uncreative person, then they have like journal pages that give you like guided things that you can do. But I hate those because I don't want people to tell me what's right. So
as a former editor of hers, I can agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've edited her too.
So, yeah. Whatever. So I had this idea of putting the planner and the journal thing, the notebook thing together to make my Word Bible thing. And so, and you have one for each book. And this is the one for my vampire book that I've kind of put on hold for right now because I'm finishing other things. But like, it has the series Bible at the beginning, and it has like this little tab. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know, I try to get closer. And the series Bible, like we were talking about, has, you know, people use pictures and stuff. So I actually physically used pictures. And then I have character sheets. And yes, that is washi tape that I used to mark them off. And I gave myself lots and lots of space so that you can just kind of write. And I have like the name of the character, and then I have all of their physical attributes. And I usually write like a little paragraph or little notes about them. I give myself a lot of space. And I even on this one, we were talking about coming up with real people to stand in for our characters kind of in our head. I actually wrote the names of those people on there so I would kind of know. And I guess eventually I was planning on getting pictures of those people and sticking that in there, but I don't know, I haven't gotten that far. And then they have these cool little things. One of the pages for uncreative people that they do have is a project goal thing. And I don't know if you can't see it, and it's like backwards, but it has like the subject and then an overview, and then it gives you like space to like, okay, on this date, I'm going to have this done. On this date, I'm going to have this done. And I really need that because I'm a terrible scheduler as far as like writing a book. It takes me forever to write a book. And so then I also have, Melissa's got hers. And then I did these beat sheet things. So, and then I have these beat sheet things that are like, I use one for romance. I found one online that's specifically for romance because it has like explanations of each, what kind of thing needs to happen in each part. I don't want to say romance novels are formulaic, but they are kind of, because you have things that you want to happen at certain parts. And it also keeps you from having them, have sex on page 1 and then never having sex again until the end of the book, which you don't like that in a romance novel. So it even has like places where, hey, a sex scene might be good here. But it has all your like pinch points and stuff, and it divides everything up into acts. and you can handwrite it with pretty pens. Because that's the other thing. I
Sparkly
use pretty
ones.
pens to do it.
Gel pens,
Sparkly
life,
pens.
yes.
And I don't know why the sparkly pens help, but they do. They help me.
It's the
But,
goblin
you know.
tendencies.
I'm just thinking how funny
Yeah,
it is to mix up
exactly.
your home planner with your romance planner. Like, suggestion,
My
a
husband would
sex
love
scene
that.
would be really good
It'd
here.
be like amazing. Oh, yay, sex today.
No, I
leave
do
that
that too.
Of course, then eventually you would get the serious misunderstanding.
Right. And
This
then how
is
about a sticker
hilarious.
for serious misunderstanding?
I'm
There's
sorry,
a sticker
honey.
for that.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
honey. I thought this was my romance novel, not my my actual relationship
Exactly.
daily planner.
Which is
Exactly.
why
But
we
one of
haven't picked
the
up the
things
dry cleaning in months.
One of the things I really like about it, and then I'll shut up because I can go on and on about this, which I'm sure Melissa can go on even more than me because she's much more proficient at these than I am.
Oh, wait till I got you.
But one of the things I really like is they have habit trackers, and you can like things that you need to remember to do on a daily basis, like this one. And of course, all of this has gone out the window because of the virus. But like write 1,000 words, post on Instagram, share your own book, because I never do that. And then you can like color in how many times you do that. So it kind of keeps track of how many times you do this in a month, and you can see your own patterns. And it also kind of helps to remind you to do stuff. So,
Another thing that I like to do is take that once it's written on paper, and kind of going back to Joelle with Evernote, it has you can scan stuff with your phone into Evernote.
Ooh.
There's a app for, I know it's on iOS, it's scannable, but there's a camera built into it too. But you can put them in Evernote, and then it makes your handwriting searchable. So I use, a lot of times I do like the paper for, planning and thinking and stuff. And then once I've got it, stuff I need to actually like keep and remember, I just scan it.
So basically
And-
you do a planner that you then scan into your other planner.
Yeah.
Hey.
Plannerception.
Hey, if it helps.
That's right.
Planning
Hey, if it
inception,
works.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a plan within a plan within a
I have
plan.
to talk to you. So can I plan? Can I scan to plan? Can I scan
Yeah.
like all of this like written stuff that I did today into Evernote?
Yeah.
Are you saying that?
Yeah, it doesn't type it for you, but you can, when you do the search, it searches your handwriting.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Magic stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Vraiment?
Melissa corrupt someone else.
Well,
I
no.
live for y'all.
Okay. Because I mean, I write a lot of stuff down by hand as well. There is something about when I'm brainstorming
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
that
Yeah.
needs that physical tactile.
Like Theresa, I'm really paranoid I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
And I have to write things down sometimes, but I don't want to lose it or spill something on it or accidentally throw it away. I can scan it and I know I at least have it digitally if I need it later on. It works really well.
I lose stuff frequently enough and have those little minor anxiety attacks over, oh my God, where did it go? That I don't trust myself to only keep a hard copy.
All right, we've got about 17 minutes left. Jim, do we have any questions?
Nobody watching has any idea who Jim is. So
That's right.
yeah.
The man behind the curtain.
He's like Roz. I'm sorry, I'm a Frasier person, so I'm like, oh my God, he's like Roz. Sorry.
That must be Darren.
I wonder who wrote that. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Teresa?
I
So if you-
found a template online It is an Excel document with macros and all kinds of wonderful things that I don't have time to learn. And it follows the Save the Cat structure, and you basically type in what your estimated word count is, and then it calculates all the stuff like what page this should happen in, and what page range your mile markers are at, and it is delightful. And then of course there's space so you can go in and you can make your notes, and I use that, and then I upload it to Evernote and Trello so I know where to find it, and then I print it off and scribble all over it.
Yeah, I think what I use
just an aside, the one that the romance one that I use has, I found it online, and it has that too, so that it will calculate that. So if anybody's a romance novelist out there, anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Natanya.
That's okay. I think what I use is a very simplified version of yours. It doesn't have macros, and that's the 7-point plot. And you can Google, like I said, Google that. I forget the name of the person that started that, but I think it's pretty much the same foundation that a lot of these are on. I do find if you're like me and you write multi-point of view novels, it's really hard, and I don't really break them down per character. I actually find that I do less outlining with the more characters that I have. Well, that makes no sense at all. But when I'm writing something more linear, that's very helpful. But the minute that I start, I have to break into other things to be able to do it. But that helps, at least even in a multi-narrative. If I'm stuck, I can go to a 7-point plot and look at what the big moments are in the overall story, because even if you have 6 or 7 points of view, you still should have a story that makes sense throughout the whole thing, and that can kind of help ground you, especially if you're having moments of writer's block. So that's kind of what I do.
I use Post-it notes and a big piece of like presentation board, like foam board, and use the Save the Cat structure. You know, this is your opening, and then you have your first incident, that kind of, and come up with incidents that way. But before I do that, again, because I'm doing mysteries, every book I do starts with character. Doing books in a series, I know who my main character is. She's the detective. She's Stella Hart. So I don't have to think about her all that much. But I do, because it's a mystery romance, I've got 2 different narratives going on at the same time. I've got the life story of Stella Hart going, and her romance with this guy, George, with these individual murder mysteries. So I know kind of what's going to happen in Stella's life. Like, for example, the one I'm doing right now, Stella's getting married. So I know there's certain things that are going to happen during the week leading up to Stella's wedding, because they're the things that happen to everybody the week leading up to their wedding. Then
Spoiler alert.
Right. Well, I mean, if you've seen the cover, she's wearing a wedding dress on the cover. So, you know, it's already pretty spoiled. But when you're talking about a mystery with a murder, I figure out who's going to die and why, and who's going to kill him and why, who else had motive to kill him and what that was, and then a list of clues. And then I do this weird schizophrenic thing where I take the Save the Cat beats and the list of things, of clues, and somehow meld them together and make an outline out of it. And I don't recommend that to anybody, but that is how I do it. I think all of this stuff works for some people and not for other people. So
Well, Lucy, I think that makes total sense though, because we're all, presumably we read or at least watch TV. And I think a lot of this stuff, I'm always amazed. I think the 40,000 mark for like 110,000 page book is supposed to be where the first like big pinch happens, you know? Yeah. And even when I'm not using a 7-point plot, that's kind of usually where it happens. Yes. It's just kind of strange how we've kind of internalized that. So, you know, for as much as you plan, I think we just kind of innately understand storytelling if we've been doing it long enough.
Exactly. And that's one thing I was going to say too. You're exactly right, because when I first read Save the Cat, which was recommended to me by John Hartness, and I thought, I don't need this. I've been writing books forever. You know, I know how this works. And the idea, like when Theresa was just talking about a thing that tells you that which chapter this is supposed to happen, my old brain is sitting there going, baloney, you know, that's crazy. You can't possibly do that. It'll ruin your book. But I know now, having done it, that Natanya's exactly right, because that's when it happens. They didn't make that up arbitrarily. There's a reason why that structure is there. So if that helps, by all means, use it.
I just kind of use it as a guide because I tend to get a little lost sometimes. I don't follow my own train of thought particularly well. And I have to refer back to it going, okay, where am I in the story? When I know that this needs to happen, but is it happening now? Do I have too many words here? Am I trying to put 10 pounds of story in a 5-pound bag? Where are we going with this? And it kind of helps me rein it in a little bit and make it a little cleaner when I first turn it in.
Yeah, I tend to write short, which is very funny because I hear all my friends say, "Oh, I'm too wordy. I write really long." And I think because I cut my teeth writing on short stories, I tend to write really brief.
Me too,
And
Joelle.
what?
Me too.
Yeah, I write really short. So
No. It's not writing short. You're writing efficiently because I do it too.
I write very efficiently. And so I have to go back all the time and build the world around the core. So like if I have a 30,000 word novella to write, I'm like done at 15,000 words. I'm like, okay, well that's wrong. I'm finished and I've written 15 to 18,000 words and I've like told my story. So what that means to me is that I've essentially written a 15,000 word outline. And now I need to go back and flesh it out and write the story and build around it. I've just got a 15,000 word outline that I have to now create the whole world around. And so sometimes I find myself like despairing because I'm like, I'm half what I should be. But then I remind myself that it's just an outline now. That's okay, right? I can go back and write it again. I can go back. So I love, if you've ever seen the masterclass ads, they pop up for me all the time on Facebook. There's one that I still love. I've never seen the masterclass, but Neil Gaiman always says the act of creating a second draft is to make it look like you knew what you were doing in the first draft all along. And I wish I could actually watch that whole thing because I would love to, but just that line always makes me feel a little better. So, when people are thinking, I have to create a world Bible, I have to create an outline, I have to create all of these things, and it just sounds so incredibly overwhelming. Just remember that there is no timeline for doing this. There is no one way to do this. No one has to see it. You can change your mind and try a different way if something's not working for you. You can meld different ways. I do Evernote, but I also write in this notebook that I was showing everybody all the time. I have big Post-it notes like this where I use smaller Post-it notes and put it on top. It can change from book to book. One way works one book for one book, and you start a different way for another book. I mean, nothing is set in stone ever. And just try different things.
Okay.
Oh.
We're listening to a question from the voice that you guys can't hear. So, okay.
I think it'll be amazing if suddenly it was like, oh yeah, we can totally hear him. That'd be awesome.
Oh, those are good questions.
All right, I'll take a really quick stab at the searchable one. So for one of my worlds, I actually built a whole Wikipedia or a wiki for it because it was really complex and everything was kind of interlaced, and it was great to have it in that format. It did take a lot of time, but it was super helpful. I even made like little shields and sigils and fun things like that. But it's totally possible. And with Evernote, like we were saying, it is searchable. And if you're taking your own physical notes, you can scan them in as well. I think OneNote does the same kind of thing. And for a lot of people, having that is super important. Other folks can just keep it all in their heads. So
can you imagine if Tolkien had Evernote?
Oh man,
how long the Lord of the Rings would have been.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never got past
would he have made less, songs written in Elvish that, people insist that you have to read?
No, maybe. Another neat thing about searching in Evernote is that if you drop like a Word document in there, it can search that text too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're searching for something about a particular character, it'll show you like which, book they're in, or, things like that. But yeah, making it searchable definitely makes it a lot easier, especially if you get several books in to your series. If you're doing something that's, one or two books, it's not quite as important. But if you get to like 10 or 15 books in a series, you kind of really need to have that information collected in a way that you can search it. And sharing it too is important. And I know, Joelle, you don't have to share it. But if you're collaborating with somebody, like if you're working in a shared universe, or if you're working with a co-writer, having a way to share it is good too.
Yes. Absolutely.
I will say it is helpful to document name changes. I have one character in the current book that has had 5 different names. So it's important to remember which names to search for. That, unfortunately, is not a problem you can fix with any kind of technology. That's just my own personal problem.
I was watching an episode of The Office yesterday, and they had evidently used Find a Replace to change a name in a play that they had written, and missed one because it was misspelled, and bad things happened.
Now, I've never used. Somebody asked quickly about maps. You said, Jim, So just real quick, I've never used a map myself. I dearly want to create a world in which I need a map, but I think the best thing to do is hire someone to draw a professional map for you. There are people out there who do beautiful map mapings for fantasy worlds. Get someone to do that for you. It's stunning.
I've never created a map or used a map for a made up world. I just use Google Maps. It's
for like a real place.
Because I will follow like the street view down the road to make sure that I'm seeing what the character would see, so that even if I haven't been there, I can at least make it plausible that I have.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you can find online with Google Map APIs. I will add Greenwood's map of London. I think it's 1829 or 1826 is phenomenal, and you can zoom on its minute details. So if you're looking for places like that, and then I found another guy who had mapped all of the fountains and baths that were in London, and I was able to superimpose that over a map of current day London to know, because I had a person that could travel by them. So you never know what you can find. If you think that you have a problem, someone out there or some combination of things will probably help you out.
There's actually a lot of information. It's actually kind of overwhelming about Victorian London, because I mean, my Watson books are set in Victorian London as well. And so there are tons of like street maps. There's one that I used on the second Watson book that it shows like, it has like the population map, like where the poor people lived as opposed to where the middle class people and the rich people lived, which was very important for that particular book. But you can find a lot, if you're writing Victorian, there is a lot of information about the streets and things that were there in Victorian London. And I mean, like restaurants and crap. I mean, like all kinds of stuff.
Restaurants.
All right, I think that leaves us 2 minutes to wrap it up. Melissa, how are we wrapping it up?
With a bow.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Put a pin in it.
Okay. Yeah. So to wrap up, World Bibles, basically a device for keeping all of the information that would be helpful to you as the author, or to your editors, or both. Or if you have readers who are interested in that kind of thing, you could maybe do them as like, if you had handwritten notes or something, you could give them as a fan giveaway. Scan it first though. So, different ways to collect your information, different ways to store it, all kinds of information. One thing that I don't want you to do though is use it as like said earlier, a procrastination tool, because it is really easy to start doing that. And eventually you do have to write the book. So where can everybody find you? Do you have a website? Guys?
I do. I don't know what the address is.
Slipperywords.com for me.
I am at natanyabarron.com or at Natanya Barron on Twitter and Instagram, and I think Natanya J. Barron on Facebook.
I have to look myself up. I can't remember.
We're being told by the
Wonderful.
disembodied head that all of these contacts will be available afterwards if you don't
Yes.
have this paper.
Yeah, so don't scramble to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like
I'll
I'm
put it
like
in the comments later.
lexchristian.wixsite.com. That's where you can find me. Or you can just find me on Facebook. I friend everybody.
And I think you
Yeah,
can probably
well,
get to all of
after
us.
looking at I have to look at your profile first to make sure you're not like a crazy person, but I usually friend
bot.
people. Right.
You can probably get to all of us through the Falstaff Books website too, because
Yes,
we all
that's
are
true.
on there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's 7:00. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for
you.
coming. Thank you, Disembodied Head, for keeping us on
Yeah.
track.